Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. I just finished the Cold Sorceress skills and abilities, and today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at the Shadow Master and the Shadow Warrior. The Shadow Master and the Shadow Warrior are two abilities that the assassin have that are kind of a little mysterious. A lot of people don't know everything about them, and oftentimes I get a question of which one should I choose? Should I choose the Warrior, or should I choose the Master? And hopefully we'll be able to go over both of these today and talk about the differences between them and why one may make a better choice over the other. Now, first off, let me start off by just simply summoning them, right? So let's summon the Shadow Warrior first. And as you can clearly see, it just looks like an assassin with dual claws and various pieces of equipment. It doesn't really seem to change much except for the color. So if you have watched my Valkyrie video, I go over this in that video as well, is that the color of the equipment can actually be used to determine what kind of equipment that the Shadow Warrior is wearing. So right now, for instance, she is utilizing a orange piece of equipment, which I'm pretty sure his attacker takes damage of. Here we have something that doesn't really quite tell us what's going on. Again, nothing. We got another orange. And you could continue like this all day long until you ended up finding like the red one, which is very nice. The red one has an increased amount of HP on it. Notice also her weapon is red, which probably indicates some kind of fire damage. And I wish she would stop walking away from me in the direction so I can't see her weapon. Can you turn, please? Turn a little bit? No, hey, there you go. Now you can see her weapon. As you can see, her cestus here is red on the tips, which indicates some sort of fire damage added to her weapon. Now, just like Valkyries, they have equipment. However, the Shadow Warrior's equipment is actually quite bad, and it does not go up very much with level, whereas the Shadow Master's equipment is actually quite good. And like the Valkyrie on the Amazon, the Shadow Master's equipment actually continues to get better as you level her up. So the more points you put into the Shadow Master, the better her equipment will be, and she will eventually have some very interesting pieces of equipment. As you can see, she's wearing a gold plate there. She has a red claw. She has the gold plate again. Now she's utilizing a very red claw. Which of course turns green when she casts her effect on it. That one was white. I don't know if you noticed she had a white claw. That one is the Fool's modification, I believe. Her helmet is blue, which indicates some sort of mana, and so forth and so on. And though you can't see her exact stats, you can definitely get an idea. And utilizing the same kind of system that we utilize for the Valkyrie, you can kind of figure out what she's wearing. For instance, the armor, you definitely want it to be either red or blue. Those are the two best ones. Orange or dark orange are not the correct ones. It has to be like a dark red, which is of the whale, which gives extra HP. Black for weapons is actually exceedingly good because it has the cruel modifier on it, which means she'll have much more damage than she would otherwise normally. Fool's Mod's not bad either, the white one, simply because Fool's Mod has tons of attack rating on it, which means she'll hit more often. And in general, you can sit here and you can resummon her forever. Right now, she has a white armor, which is the Saintly modifier. It's plus defense based on character level. That one is actually not really the greatest, but the defense could be nice in certain scenarios if it's a highly melee-orientated situation. However, the Warrior doesn't have all those amazing options for her equipment. Her equipment doesn't go up like the Shadow Master's does. For instance, the Shadow Master can gain new pieces of equipment every certain number of levels. At level 6, she gains a blue Suaya. At level 11, she gains a rare Suaya. And a rare War Fist and a rare Scissors Suaya. I mean, basically, like, there's tons of different pieces of equipment. Like, at level 17, she gets a rare amulet. At level 11, she gets a rare helmet. At level 6, she gets a blue helmet. At level 9, she gets a blue ring. At level 11, she gets a rare ring. At level 13, she gets a second rare ring. and so forth and so on. And it definitely seems like level 17 is kind of where she caps out on her equipment, because level 17 is the last upgrade for her gear. It's the rare amulet. So having at least a level 17 Shadow Master is going to get you the best equipment possible on her. Now, the equipment is random, though. As you all very well know, when you have a rare item fall on the ground, there is no guarantee that rare item is going to be any good whatsoever. It could be the most horrific garbage in the world, or it could be the most godlike thing in existence. So all you can really control with the Shadow Master when you summon her is just to look at her armor and see what the hell she's got going on. As you can see, she's got a blue armor this time, and she's got a red helmet, so life on her helmet and probably Frost Nova and things like that on her armor. Now, there are more differences between the Shadow Master and the Shadow Warrior just in their strength. The Shadow Warrior caps at 75% resistance. So no matter what, she is always capped at 75% resistance, no matter how high you level her. However, the Shadow Master, on the other hand, has no such cap, and her resistances will continue to rise as high as you can get her level. At level 21, she exceeds the 75% cap, and as she goes further past level 21, she can get as high as like 89, 90, sometimes even 95%, depending on how high you can make her level, resistances to all elements, and she also comes with 40% damage reduction. I believe both the Shadow Master and the Shadow Warrior come with 40% reduction, though. Damage reduction, physical damage reduction. Let me double check my numbers here. Yes, they both come with 40% physical damage reduction. However, the Master can be as high as 90% to resistances, which is pretty darn awesome. We also have some various differences between like the way that the strength and defense and things are calculated. It's definitely apparent that the Master is the superior one in terms of things like survivability, equipment, just in general, just being a stronger like summon in general. But the thing about summons is you can always, you know, respawn them. You can always just resummon them if they die. So as long as they're not dying like really, really fast, usually it doesn't really matter if they're super durable or not. Of course, you cannot have both of them up at the same time. As soon as you summon one, the other will disappear. And they cannot use Claw Mastery or Weapon Block. The Warrior cannot. And I'm trying to remember if the Shadow Master can. I believe the Shadow Master can use Claw Mastery and Weapon Block. I'm just trying to confirm here. It does look like she can. So the Shadow Master is limited in many ways, and it definitely is interesting to consider that the Shadow Master has a lot of limitation, or sorry, the Shadow Warrior has a lot of limitations on her, whereas the Shadow Master seems to be almost completely autonomous and has access to skills that even you don't have access to. Whereas the Warrior, that we need to talk about, is that the Warrior can only use your abilities. And this is important. So when you're out in the stony field or whatever it may be, your warrior cannot actually do anything more than what you essentially have her set to do. So right now I have Shadow Warrior and Attack on my main buttons. So she can only use Shadow Warrior and Attack. That's it. If I put a different ability up here, like for instance, I could throw up Fire Blast. If I put Fire Blast on my left click, she should start utilizing Fire Blast. However, the thing is that despite the fact that she is set to utilize the same abilities as me, she often doesn't, because certain abilities are outside of her scope of use. Charge Bolt Sentry may be in her scope of use. Let's see if we can get her to back off for a second here so we can actually see if she uses the ability. There you go. So see, now she is using Fire Blast because I have Fire Blast on my left click. And There are a couple abilities that she will not use, and this is kind of important, so we're going to go over these. She can use Assassin's left click and right mouse button abilities, although she cannot, of course, summon a Shadow Warrior or Master, and has not been observed using Cobra Strike or Blade Fury, so she will not copy Cobra Strike or Blade Fury on you. I found this out when I was utilizing my Blade Fury Assassin. I wanted to see if maybe I could just like double up the Blade Furies and have her attacking too, but she does not use Blade Fury, which was rather unfortunate. The skill levels that she uses are based on the assassin's current skill level, in combination with the Shadow Warrior's skill level when summoned. So if she's level 31 or 25, for instance, and you have like a level 20 skill, it will combine together her skill level with your skill level and come up with a formula that ends up in a final like level for that ability. And I'm trying to remember exactly what that formula is. I know it's written down here somewhere. Ah, yes, here we go. So the level of the skills of the Shadow Warrior are equivalent to 1/3 of its own skill level. So mine is currently level 25, so 1/3 of 25. Plus 1/2 of the skill level of the skill being used rounded up. So for instance, if I was utilizing, say, I don't know, let's just get an idea here. Let's say Burst of Speed. So let's say I had Burst of Speed on my right click. Her level is currently 25, so it's 1/3 of that, plus half of my Burst of Speed rounded up. So she'd probably be around like level 20-ish or something like that. Of course, we could run it on a calculator real quick, because my quick maths are always terrible. So 25 minus, what is that, 66%. So we're looking at 8.5. And then half of course, the skill level being used. So we've got, what is that? 12.5 rounded up, so it would be 13. So 8.5 probably rounds up 2, because it did specifically say rounded up, so it's probably 9 plus 13, which equals 22. So we're looking at level 22 Burst of Speed. Let's see if she will use it, because this is important. Like, is she actually going to cast it? I believe a monster has to be nearby for her to actually start casting abilities. There we go. And so now she has Burst of Speed on. But keep in mind that she will not cast Burst of Speed unless you have it on your right or left click. The only things that she will use are things that are on your left and right click. Now this is actually something that people have abused for PvP, is they will actually have Psychic Hammer sitting on one of their left or right clicks, for instance, and then they will essentially allow that assassin to just like absolutely obliterate, or not Psychic Hammer, sorry, Mind Blast. Mind Blast sitting on the right click, and then your little girl is just going to spam Mind Blast. She's just going to spam it. And because that's the only ability that you have up there besides, you know, whatever else you have on your left click. And your other Shadow Master will use Mind Blast. But the problem is that there is no guarantee that she will specifically use that ability in place of all the other abilities that she currently has access to. Because the Shadow Master has all of these ridiculous abilities at her disposal. She is very autonomous, and she can do pretty much anything that she wants. She can cast traps, she can cast all sorts of spells, abilities, she can use Venom, she can use, you know, like the Blade Shield, she can cast everything from like lightning traps and death sentries and all sorts of things. Now this can also be a detriment because there is a maximum number of traps that you are allowed to summon at any given time, and the Shadow Master's traps are not going to be as good as yours. So if you are a trap sin, it might not necessarily be a good choice because it will consume some of your trap, number slots, essentially. The other thing to consider, though, is that, well, if you're spamming traps anyway, it probably doesn't matter. And the Shadow Master is actually pretty powerful. As you can see, she uses things like Dragon Flight. She builds charges. She uses abilities. She has a Blade Shield. She puts up Burst of Speed. She puts up Fade. She puts up all sorts of things. And literally, she goes back and forth, and she just uses whatever the hell she wants. It does make her a little bit random, though. In general, you will find that she's just not really quite like a consistent source of anything. She's just sort of like a random source of everything. Whether it be traps, whether it be melee abilities, whether she's teleporting around with Dragonflight, whether she's casting, like her buffs, or she's just being kind of like useless. She's just a completely autonomous creature that just kind of does whatever the hell she wants to do, and beefed up to her maximum, she actually has some pretty good life, and her equipment also changes, of course, with every single time you cast her. So you can sit in town and try and get yourself like the perfect shadow, master, so that she's as beefy and as strong as she can possibly be. Another interesting thing that you could do with the Shadow Master is you could definitely build a Shadow Master that could take on the world, so to speak. I've done this with a Amazon. I call it a Valkazon. Her entire job is basically just to beef up the Valkyrie as much as humanly possible. Well, in this similar way, you could do the same thing with a Shadow Master. You could end up with like a level 50 some odd Shadow Master, utilizing every single piece of equipment that you could that had shadow skills on it. And, you could essentially have just like the most amazing Shadow Master that ever existed. And, in doing so, you're obviously going to gimp yourself in the process. But, it's a fun thing to do, though, is to build like a character that can summon like just insanely strong characters or summon abilities. And of course you could beef her up with auras, and you could use call to arms to give her more life or more mana. I don't even think she has mana actually, but life. And maybe even plus the skills will probably work on her too. And as you can see, that we're in hell difficulty right now in players. What are we in? Players 1 or players 2? I don't even remember. We're in players 3. And as you can see, she can actually kill some stuff at level 25. Like, she's not that bad. And then level 25 isn't even really particularly that high. You could definitely get her higher. And she could definitely dish out more damage. And in combination with other effects like curses or auras from mercenaries, or enchant from an Act 3 merc, or whatever it is that you'd want to do. Like, I could pull a demon limb out, and I could enchant her to give her extra attack rating and fire damage. You can definitely beef her up even stronger. But what it comes down to is which one of these do you pick? I mean, in most cases, when it comes to the Shadow Warrior and the Shadow Master, the entire reason that you're picking them is for their tankiness. You want them to be able to tank, and so that you don't have to, especially if you're a Trapsin who's trying to, run around and kite and, slap down your lightning sentries and your death sentries or whatever it is that you're doing. You don't want to necessarily have to fight anything. And a meat shield that's not doing his or her job is going to be useless to you. So having a Shadow Warrior or a Shadow Master that can actually hold his own is more important than it would seem. And believe it or not, the Shadow Master is by far the tankier of the two, specifically because she can raise her resistances above 75% cap, which means that she ends up being a lot stronger. Her life pool is the same as the Shadow Warriors. However, due to the fact that she can obtain rare level equipment and the Shadow Warrior cannot, the Shadow Master again exceeds the Shadow Warrior in life capability, because with the right pieces of equipment, her life will go up even more. Right now, she's wearing a red helmet, which is undoubtedly a plus life helmet. Like an optimal setup for her would be something along the lines of a red armor and a red helmet, combined with a black weapon, which would give her a very nice increase in damage. As you can see right now, we did manage to get a black weapon. Of course, she immediately covered it with venom, so it's a little bit difficult to tell. But she was utilizing a black cestus. That means that she got the cruel modifier. The cruel modifier is plus 300% enhanced damage. So she's going to be doing more damage in this particular setup than she was in the other ones. So she should technically be able to kill things even faster than she was before, utilizing those cruel claws. And the way that they have these summons set up, the Valkyrie and the Shadow Master, the amount of damage and stuff that these characters do is highly dependent on, number one, their level, and number two, their equipment that they are capable of obtaining. You know, like if you get a really bad roll and she's wearing a bunch of garbage equipment, she's going to be a garbage Shadow Master. And when you resummon her with good equipment, she's going to be amazing. And I'm sure all of you have had this happen before, where literally you're, you know, summoning your Valkyrie or whatever, and it just feels like this one Valkyrie was just like the weakest thing in existence, and somebody just walked up and one-bopped them. And then later on, you have this other Valkyrie that you summoned later, and she's just like the most tanky, ridiculously broken Valkyrie. Like, she never dies. It just seems like she never takes any damage, and like even Diablo can't kill her. Like, that's the difference between a good equipment spawn and a bad equipment spawn. And that's really kind of what the Shadow Master comes down to. Now, another aspect of the Shadow Master, which when we were talking about Mind Blast, is that the Shadow Master does spam Mind Blast all the time, and there is no way to stop that. Whereas with the Warrior, you can stop the Shadow Blasts. If you don't have your Mind Blasts on the a bar, then your Shadow Warrior will not use them. So, in effect, you can prevent her, or, you know, you can prevent the Shadow Warrior from ever using that ability. And this is kind of important because what it does is it allows you to just kind of like avoid the conversions, which can be annoying if you're trying to do like speed runs or rush things. And I've many times, many times have I been doing a run on one of my assassins, and I'm running along, and the Shadow Master just starts spamming conversion on everything, and I can't do anything because she's literally just converted everything on the battlefield to the point where there's nothing left. Like, it's just all converted monsters, and we're just standing there waiting for the converted monsters to just you know, turn back into unconverted monsters. And this is, I think, quite honestly, kind of a downside in my opinion, because conversion can be rather annoying if you're deliberately trying to rush. And the conversion effect, while it might not be that high at 37%, it happens often enough, and she spams it often enough that you're going to see it a lot. Going over like specific builds that might want to choose specific ones. If you are a character that's not using Blade Fury and not using Cobra Strike, and you have a particularly strong ability, Shadow Warrior might be a good choice, just simply because you'll be able to get double duty out of your ability. And this particular character, this particular summon, is a copy of you. You know, the Shadow Warrior is a copy of you, what you are doing. If you are doing something that is worthwhile, then she is doing something that is worthwhile. And, you know, and it's useful to a point. However, there are definitely things that you don't want her to be copying, and so in those scenarios, you kind of want to avoid it. Whereas the Master just does whatever the hell the Master wants to do, and the Master can sometimes interfere too by casting too many traps or converting too many monsters, and sometimes the Master is not worth the trouble that she you know, creates. However, in terms of tankiness, the Shadow Master is definitely the superior option. And if you're looking for a Shadow Master that's not going to die, if you're looking for a summon that's not going to die, the Shadow Master is definitely the better choice of the two. I think that's pretty much everything I can talk about with the Shadow Warrior and the Shadow Master. There's really not a whole lot more to go over. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I ramble on for 23 minutes on the difference between the Shadow Warrior and the Shadow Master. And I hope for those of you who are, you know, were curious in which one to choose, I hope I've given you a little bit more of insight into how the two of them work. As always, stay to the shadows and hit that like button.